Hi, this is Aaron Wilson. And to no one's surprise, Stefon Diggs is not going to be back with the Texans. He joins the New England Patriots on a 3-year, $69 million deal, $26 million of which is guaranteed. And the reason that Stefon is no longer a Texan has a lot to do with his health, his age, and his price tag. So it's a multi-layered, complicated situation, and the fact that the Texans had already moved on by trading for Christian Kirk from the Jacksonville Jaguars to operate out of the slot, which is primarily where Stefon lined up last year. And I want to get through some of the facts and some of the fiction surrounding Stefon Diggs' tenure with the Texans and now his official departure. So let's start with Diggs and where things stood between him and the Texans. The Texans said the door was not closed, and that's true. The door was not closed completely on Stefon Diggs. They did talk about parameters. They discussed potential returns. How could it happen? Ultimately, they weren't going to make anywhere close to the financial commitment of the Patriots, and understandably so. And this is prior to acquiring Christian Kirk. So you look at the discussions with the Texans and Diggs and per league sources, they just weren't on the same page in terms of expectations financially. And when they voided those deals, rather voided the contractual commitment in terms of changing his deal a year ago, it was done with the purpose of allowing him to test the market. And that was something he wanted to do. He had never been a free agent before. So the timing for him of the injury couldn't have been worse, but it still worked out well for him, which is a testament to what a good football player he is, and the fact that the New England Patriots are pretty desperate. They tried to get Chris Godwin, and they struck out on getting Godwin. He went back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were willing to pay a lot of money. He actually left money on the table to go back to the Buccaneers. So Stefon joins the Patriots, teams up with Drake May back in the AFC East. He'll play the Buffalo Bills, his former team. We didn't, depart really as smoothly as he did with the Texans. A little bit of a rocky ending there, his divorce from the Bills. Now he gets to play them twice a year. So Stefon, who says he'll never be the bigger man, that's what he told me when he had that little feisty deal with Jair Alexander from the Packers in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. He's going to have a chance to get his revenge on the Bills, and I'm sure he'll downplay those matchups, but it'll obviously mean something to him. So in terms of what happened with Stefon, the biggest thing is he got injured. And they were 5-1 when Stefon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins were all healthy and in the lineup together. And then he got injured the following week against the Indianapolis Colts, tears his ACL, has surgery. He's having a great rehab. The health outlook is good for him. He will be ready by training camp. But he is 31, and he did lose a step, I believe, in watching, he just really wasn't much of a deep threat. He's more of a possession guy. So he had 47 catches, and he was on pace for 100 catches and over 1,000 yards if he had been able to maintain that pace for the entire season. So looking at Diggs and what happened with him, he was a team captain. He was voted that and validated by his teammates. He fit in well. He was popular in the locker room. He was well liked by the coaching staff. And a lot of people said, well, he's a diva, all this sort of stuff. It's not really the way he's perceived in the locker room. He's perceived as a fun-loving personality and someone that definitely is an individual, but what he does helps the collective. And if that makes sense for you in terms of how Stefon operates. He was generous with his time. He would stay after practice, working with the younger receivers. He mentored Tank Dell and John Mechie III and Nico Collins and Xavier Hutchinson. So, two things can be true. He can be a lot in terms of his personality. He can be a little bit extra. But this isn't the type of place where you have to tread lightly. This is a football team. And you can have a few personalities like Stefon Diggs, especially when they're as productive as Stefon was. You look at C.J. Stroud, metrics here. So when CJ was throwing to Diggs, he had completed 73% of his passes. He had 104 passer rating. So outstanding precision on those targets and great chemistry between CJ Stroud and Stefon Diggs. And Stefon, as far as any type of reputational stuff like being a coach killer, being a bad teammate, that wasn't the reality. But I know it's an easy, kind of lazy narrative that some people fell into. And I don't say this as someone that, I'm going to, excuse me, Stefon doesn't need me to defend him. And I don't think it's necessarily all that controversial, but there are things that, people have said that I think are untrue regarding Stefon Diggs. And I say this to someone, I covered him when I was at the Baltimore Sun newspaper when he was heading into the draft. We have some things in common. We're both from the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, and I played in the same conference as him. Would bring up St. John's, my high school, and the Good Counsel, his high school, Our Lady of Good Counsel, the rivalry. When I was there, we were beating them 40-0. He said, I used to kick your butt when I was there. Yeah, but none of the teams I played on. But I'm a lot older than Stefon. But yeah, a lot of fun covering Stefon. Always had a great relationship and generous with his time, and he definitely would keep it at 100 with me. And we had good conversations even during, some interesting times, like the Green Bay thing where he nearly got in a fight with Jair Alexander and a bunch of Packers players. He was fired up for the game. Do the coaching staff, do people love that kind of thing? Especially not when you lose, but I don't think ultimately that I could call him fairly a distraction. I would say that is just sort of a perception that maybe some have, but to me, that's not what Stefon Diggs was about. He was someone that helped them win, and you look at everything that he did for the Texans, I thought he was helpful. And you look at his career. Former fifth-round pick from the University of Maryland, and he's got a ton of production. He's got 857 career catches. He's got 10,491 yards and 71 touchdowns, 70 of them receiving in a decade in the NFL. He's got a proud, illustrious NFL career, and he's got a lot of respect around the league. And you can see why the Patriots wanted him, and Mike Vrabel wanted to add someone that could really help what they've got going with Mac Hollins, with Kendrick Bourne, and to have a strong passing game. And he's someone that can move the chains. He's someone that can get open. And I don't think the Texans necessarily they're doomed without Stefon Diggs. I mean, they've got Christian Kirk. They've got Nico Collins. They're going to get more receivers. They've already met with Matthew Golden. They're going to look at a ton of receivers. They met with Emeka Luka at the NFL Scouting Combine. And there's going to be plenty of activity for them with the wide receiving core. So, yeah, I would expect them to draft a receiver. I don't know necessarily that they have to get a veteran wide receiver to go with what they currently have. They've got some receivers. There's definitely some potential for Justin Watson. And so where the Texans stand at wide receiver, yes, it's a little bit in flux, but I don't think without Tank Dell, without Stefon Diggs, they're doomed by any stretch. I think that they'll still have a very productive passing game. It's just going to be with some different targets. So the Texans are changing, and Stefon Diggs has changed addresses to Foxborough, Massachusetts, home of the Patriots, and he'll now apply his trade at Gillette Stadium in the fall. And yeah, I wish him well. Good luck, Stefon, and Steph, as most call him. I think that he's going to do good things with the New England Patriots, and it's a heck of a payday. So good contract negotiated by Adisa Bakari and Jeff Whitney from Stefon's agency. They've represented him his entire career, and he's made a lot of money, and rightfully so. He's earned it. He's had some real success, 4-time Pro Bowl selection, a lot of 100-catch seasons, and he was on pace for one with the Texans. And he ultimately, even though it didn't quite work out because of the injury, he still helped the Texans get off to a fast start, and they needed those 5 wins, right? Because ultimately the Texans, they're a team that, they won the South Division, but it wasn't as lopsided as it could have been had they been able to have a healthy receiving core. They missed Nico Collins for 5 games because of a hamstring, and then they lose Tank Dell at the end of the season because of a devastating knee injury that's going to cost him his 2025 season. So still a work in progress for the Texans at receiver, and I know they're going to continue to work on that. I think having Christian Kirk really alleviated the need for Stefon Diggs. And in terms of money, it's a situation where you don't want to be paying a ton of older players. You want to get younger, and you want to put your resources into players that can be with you for a long time. And if they tried to push this, in my opinion, unless he had been healthy, 100% healthy at the end of the season, it just doesn't make sense. So I think a lot of people, grasp logic and understand why Stefon Diggs no longer a Texan. And we've seen this coming for a while. You haven't seen a lot of updates from us about the receiver position. We asked the questions. They answered them the right way at the combine, saying that the door was open. But by that point, it was already becoming clear that the die was cast and that Stefon Diggs and the Texans would be a past tense situation. So they move on, Stefon Diggs moves on, and we move on to the next story. So Diggs officially no longer a Texan, and I think that's okay. I think it's one where this isn't a harmful situation for the Texans. I don't know if they're going to miss him a ton, other than the leadership and some of the coaching tips that he would give to the younger players. And he's a very reliable pass catcher, and he knows how to get open. And I think he definitely challenged the defensive backs and made the Kamari Lassers and the Derek Stingley Jr.'s better from his presence. So from an intangible standpoint, all of those things, Stefon Diggs was an asset to the 2024 Texans. But 2025, he's a Patriot, and the Texans move on. Thanks for all your time. Appreciate these conversations, and it's always good to talk with you guys. Please like and subscribe. It's free, 100%. Just like it's free to read me at www.click2houston at KPRC2 and to watch us on the airwaves at our KPRC2, KPRC2 Plus. And I'm on Instagram at Aaron Wilson 7128 and Twitter /X at Aaron Wilson _NFL. We're going to be pivoting a lot more to the NFL draft. I've been doing some updates on the draft. You probably have noticed in terms of local prospects that are going to meet with the Texans, visits that I've reported, and we'll continue to report out of the 30 official visits the Texans can have, and much more. So, please keep it locked. And next week, NFL owners meetings, and there'll be interviews with D'Amico Ryans and Cal McNair and perhaps Mike Timone, the team president. So that's what's going on with the Texans. Look forward to talking to you soon.